Nick. Well, I'm delighted to see so many of you, and we're very pleased to welcome you to this session. So hold on, I've just got a short presentation to show you who what our topic is about and who's going to be on the panel and facilitating some of the discussion. So today what the session is going to be about, the title was to change the system, let us not reinvent the wheel. And so the topic is about replicating what works, which is a fantastic way to increase impact of social innovation and bring about system change. However, quite a lot of social entrepreneurs and implementers and system need to overcome quite a lot of issues to make this cross-border or international scaling a possibility. And so today what we want to address is experiences and from different stakeholders telling you about what is well, their experience in international scaling, what are the key barriers that they struggle with or that they managed to overcome, and also what was an acceleration for them to in that scaling internationally and cross-border. So today I'm very pleased and happy to be joined by great panels, Linda Attias from Simplon, Madeleine, Clarke from Geno and European Socialist Catalyst Fund from Ireland, Simplon in France, but also in different countries. She'll tell us all about. Miquel de Paladéala from Social in Spain, and Alexander Kesselring from Ashoka in Austria. And so we'll be having different times during the session, a brief introduction from myself, then discussion from different perspectives, and then we'll have time for us to co-create or discuss about your experience as well in international scaling and what you feel would be useful to create to make it easier. So maybe just a few words before we start on our experience as well. So I'm Isabelle Hoyaux, the founder of ScaleChanger, and I'm here with Gloria Barr, who's there as well.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And we work for ScaleChanger, which is an organization that helps impact-proven organizations to scale. We've been around for nearly 7 years and supported over 500 organizations. And we work quite a lot across cross-borders, whether it be through programs for the French ministry and other ministries in Europe, but we also work for programs in Africa, and we'll draw some of the lessons as well that we've learned from those experiences beyond supporting individual organizations. Maybe just to frame the discussion, I'll give you some of the issues around scaling internationally. Some of them are similar to when you scale within your country as well, but that grow or that take other dimension when you're scaling internationally. And the first question is why? Why in the first place do you want to scale internationally? Is often you've got plenty of issues around where you live. So why is it relevant or useful to scale internationally? And then there's a question of when. Is it the right time for you to go there? Are you ready to go? Are you robust enough? And what are you going to scale? Is it going to be relevant? And what is it going to be the success elsewhere as well? And then come the question of how. Where do you start? Who are you going to go with? Are you going to go with partners? So there are lots of questions that arise that some of the organization have already started thinking about in their own setting. But at the same time, when you scale internationally, you have to go through again all that thinking process again, and thinking, well, should I adopt the same way as what I've done nationally? And so some of the key challenges as well that we see when organizations, social impact organizations are scaling internationally are multiple. So you've got quite a few barriers to overcome, which are multiple dimensions. So there's the question of how to adapt your solution, how to navigate through ecosystems that you don't really know or that you're not familiar with, how you might be missing funds because there's not that many funds available necessarily for scaling across border. The legal framework is might be different, so your solution might not be adapted. How do you access your beneficiaries? And then you've got more soft dimensions around cultural barriers, because maybe what's relevant in your own setting is not relevant in another setting, or you need to adapt it or to adjust some of the words, or the language as well is key, because to communicate with your replicators or your implementers elsewhere if you're a social enterprise, and finding the right partners to support you in that journey. So there's quite a lot of challenges that are on the journey to scaling across border. But what we're very happy to talk about today is, all right, so we identify some of the key issues. So what are some of the solutions that can be found, or what makes it work for various stemming from various already experienced people. And so I'm very pleased to give the floor to our speakers. And so I'll start with you, Linda, on maybe the experience of Simplon. Can you tell us a little bit about what already Simplon is and what's your experience scaling internationally?
Yeah, hi everyone. So thank you very much for welcoming me. So my name is, as I said, Linda Atias. I'm the head of international operation within Simplon. Maybe to start with, I will say a few words about what is Simplon. So we are a social business that was created in France in 2013, and we are basically a network of social digital factories. Can you hear me well? Hello?
Yeah, a bit far away, but we're good.
Oh, sorry. So let me take the mic closer. So I was saying that Simplon is a network of social digital factories or of digital training centers. And what we do is that we offer free and intensive training in digital entry-level jobs that are currently on very high demand on the market. And basically what we do is that we target those job seekers that are quite underrepresented in the digital sector, or employees that are at the stake of losing their jobs if they are not reskilled or upskilled with digital competencies. So our trainings are accessible without any technical prerequisite, but mainly based on social criteria to motivated people. So we really aim towards social impact, and we rely and we work based on the active pedagogy, but I will not get into too much detail about it. As for our economic model, we have definitely a very hybrid economic model where we get funds both from public, private, and philanthropic sectors from across the world. Talking about our international deployment, so we were born in 2013. We started having our first fabric outside France in 2014, but our heavy deployment abroad started in 2016, 2017. And to answer the why, basically it has been at the beginning quite opportunistic with other social entrepreneurs from different countries that didn't want to reinvent the wheel and basically offered us to replicate our model abroad. And this is the way it started for us to work across borders and to design our international framework of work. As of today, Simplon has trained like 13,000 persons, including like more than 4,000 people in 15 different countries, of which like 80% were job seekers at time of entering the training, and 35% are women, because we really want to aim to gender parity in our trainings. One thing I didn't say, and it may be the most important, that all our trainings are free for the trainees. So we always have to find the source of funding for this training that are not the trainees themselves. So just to go to the topic, when it comes to challenges and to levers to international deployment, what I wanted to share with you is, as to me, scaling up social innovation internationally, the key word that comes to mind is adaptation, and the whole question is about, how you adapt and how far or how much you adapt. And this is based on this that I wanted to share like some of the key aspects of our international deployment. The first thing would be for us to make sure that we adapt our model to the local reality. And in order to do that within Simplon, what we have done is that we have systematized the implementation of country feasibility studies before starting implementing a project abroad. This is a very important step to actually understand the global social economic context, the digital skills that are required on the local market, and to be able to propose and to have a relevant action plan for working in the country, or possibly to decide that it's not the time and not relevant for Simplon to actually implement a project or a training in a country. Then for Simplon, across time, it became obvious that we had to develop different, adaptive development model. Let's say that not all the project, all the partners, and all the context requires the same approach, and nowhere we're willing to replicate the same way everywhere. So basically, we have developed like 3 models. One is what we call the in-house model, when we basically directly operate the training in a country. The second one is what we call the partnership model, or we can call it the franchising model, where we actually partner with a local organization and we equip them and we support them in implementing the training, and we follow up on all the processes and all through the training. And then the last one is a knowledge partnership model, or my friend from Ashoka called it the dissemination model. And basically, it's more about coaching a local partner and support him to take ownership of a training program and implement it on its own. And each of these model has pros and cons. And for each of these models, we face different challenges. Obviously, with the in-house model, you have a very good control over quality of what is delivered, but you also take more risk, and it's often more costly. Plus, your impact at the beginning will be not as important as working through partners. The franchises model is enable you to have a very strong social impact. It's a good balance between local adaptation and having more or less control over the quality. But the challenge is actually to find the right implementing partner with whom you want to work with. And here, over time, we realize how important it is for us to have very strong value alignment with our partners, and that's how we have developed a methodology for partner selection. Then it is about operating the partnership and also the partner retention, let's say, as we realize that you always need to keep creating value for your partners in order to keep this partnership being relevant, meaningful to your partner. And the last model that we have, the dissemination one, is actually the opposite of the in-house one, where we have like very less control over quality, and then there's another range of challenges and questions that comes to you. And then very briefly, because I don't have too much time, another thing I think that is very challenging and very important when you start deploying internationally is to adapt internally. I think maybe sometimes we have a tendency to underestimate the time and resources it takes to work outside your own borders in terms of HR profiles that are required, in terms of languages, ensuring that you translate all your materials, your tools, and so on and so forth. The last point when it comes to adapting your model is obviously to find the right business model, which is obviously a key challenge. For Simplon, what has happened in our international deployment is that we have been also supported by long-lasting partners with whom we work in one country and wanted and proposed to deploy in other countries, some like key accounts like Capgemini, Fondation Société Générale, Orange, with whom we work for since basically Simplon was created. There are also many challenges around the status. As an example, in French, the social enterprise status is very well defined and allow you to access very different type of funds, while in many other countries, this social enterprise status doesn't exist as such. And we had, or our partner had to create, two companies like a profit and a non-profit to ensure that we can they can access funding to sustain their model. I think one of the key things is to be, to remain hybrid as we are globally within Simplon, and to find the solution for your action to be sustainable, which is an everyday challenge. And the last thing that could be open up for discussion is how far you actually want to adapt based on this, all these points, how far you go with your adaptation, what is the right balance between this strong model that you have developed and that works and the local adaptation. What is the real common ground to this all, and to what extent do you allow for local adaptation? And this is one of the challenges that we think about every day when we implement the programs at the international level. Thank you. I hope it was not too long.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Linda. And so maybe I'll give the floor now to Miquel, who works with municipality. Well, he works for Social, which does lots of things, but it works very much with municipalities in how to adapt also solutions that comes from elsewhere. And so maybe you can share with us your experience on adaptation and international scaling.
Yes, thank you. And yes, we do work with cities. So I'm going to try to put the hat of our clients for one day and try to share some of the lessons learned on these key challenges and levers that help proven innovations work in cities. And one, I think, so some of these lessons, one would be the time horizons that are often too short for certain things, and sometimes even too long for others. So cities need to understand whether an innovation should be brought in first as a marginal innovation that would increasingly become mainstream, or if the innovation is ready and we are ready to make it mainstream. And the problem is often that innovators think that the innovation should be mainstream immediately, and sometimes impatience is a major pandemic, and we should let cities take their time to taste it, to process, to experiment, to discover, in the end to own it, and this impatience is not helping. So we should never sell silver bullets. Actually, the best examples we have come from people who have understood the nuance of every city's context, and that every context is different. So this is the easy things to say. So we don't look for ready-made solutions to our problems. We instead need to work with people that understand and work with us together in discovering our own answers, and our own responses to the issues. So this issue of timing, I think, is important. Another thing is, the second message is that cities are increasingly develop their own institutional capacity to experiment, but this capacity is unevenly distributed. This means that our local ecosystem needs to be recognized and understood, and be ready, and innovators need to be ready to connect with perhaps unexpected partners and build on the existing capacity that you can find in the city, in the locality where you want to expand. So if Linda was saying before, we need to understand what is adaptable, what is not adaptable. The type of local partner that you expect normally is not an active ingredient. It's not a core component of your innovation. So be flexible to find different sort of partners, and don't look for, you know, a clone of yourselves, a clone of the innovators. We don't clone people yet, so that wouldn't be the recipe. The third element is this idea of the active ingredients, and this is about understanding the non-negotiables of the innovations. And here we find a lot of times innovators that do not recognize the 2, 3, maximum 4 active ingredients that make the innovation amazing. I mean, that actually allow the innovations to generate the results and the outcome, the social outcomes that it generates. There are not 20. And here Lydia was talking about it. So I think it is important that you try and understand what is an active ingredient and what is not. Another thing that is not normally an active ingredient is the way, for instance, that one monetizes value. So the business model is not normally an active ingredient. So be also flexible and open to explore different ways of monetizing the value you create. And perhaps the last thing would be the fact that the low-hanging fruits have already been collected, and we are looking at this 2030 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Perhaps the major contribution of the Millennium Development Goals, the 2015 goals, were that we were all focused at looking at low-hanging fruits. And now these have already been collected. So now we have the more difficult fruits to collect. And this means that we need to be a bit more systemic. And that's why I think the title of this session is interesting. Unless we start addressing some of the systemic failures that we have and recognizing, you know, the different levels of the structures of our systems in every city. And therefore, unless we try and address that, we might actually be failing at solving the problem. So we are looking for these innovations that are addressing the systemic issue. And perhaps it is an entry point. And many innovators are bringing in very nice entry points that can actually help the system change. So that would be perhaps the 3, 4 ideas that I wanted to start with, and then see where this debate takes us.
Thank you very much, Miquel. Maybe seen from exactly a systemic point of view, I'd like to hand the talking stick to Alex from Ashoka in Austria, sorry, I'm about to say Australia, to tell us about a program that you've been running with people with disability, and how that has worked out and how it changed perhaps the system, or at least addressed the issue globally.
Hi everyone, Alex speaking from Austria. We've also been supporting social enterprises, and in particular Ashoka fellows, to scale internationally, but sometimes we also support them to localize the solution in Austria, for instance, where we are located. So I want to share a little story or example that shows a bit that we sometimes underestimate the role of local stakeholders and experts that we sometimes, you know, need to explore a new ecosystem. So this is about a recent attempt to localize a solution that has been invented in Brazil and the US in Austria with the support of an Austrian foundation. The solution is called Livox, which is an app that enables people with severe cognitive impairments to communicate through symbols supported by artificial intelligence. So a kind of a tech-based solution, but really embedded in a social system, which is usually education, schools, etc. So a key challenge, as we already heard, is to really understand the existing social system in a new country. And what we're trying to do here is to have a very lean and quick feasibility assessment with key stakeholders from that ecosystem. And in a smaller country like Austria, and in a smaller system like, let's say, inclusive education, you usually get a handful of experts together and they will know the key players in that system and how it works. So we're trying to do that. The feasibility exercise, it's not a feasibility study, it's really an exercise, like 2 calls, and we're trying to discuss things like what are the application fields, who are the target groups for this solution in Austria? How do we have access to, let's say, schools or other educational areas? Do we have access to testing facilities, and do we have funding for it? So we're checking this with them quite in some detail. And usually it's quite easy to raise attention and create some excitement around a new solution. But very soon we notice that local stakeholders have a very peculiar perspective, right? And they notice some details that do not, that are not, you know, that do not match their way of doing things. And you can come across that very easily. In the example of Livevox, we checked all the boxes but one, which was the licensing model. They are applying a very conventional licensing model where they sell licenses to schools, to governments, sometimes even to individual users. And the Austrian stakeholders said, well, we kind of disapprove that, because we usually, these solutions have to be free of cost. They have to be open source, so no proprietary knowledge, etc. And they had a real problem with that, right? So you're running into these very small details most of the time, but you can at least make sure that you run into them as soon as possible in this process. The good thing is that we managed to work with a different partner and stakeholder who are actually now piloting this initiative. But what it also shows, and that is a barrier that we see in some countries, in particular in welfare states like Austria, that the social sector is a bit skeptical about social business and skeptical about the approaches that try to commercialize a specific solution. So I think there are two challenges here. The one is to build trust with local stakeholders and experts early on, and also to create some trusted brand. And that can be a question also to intermediaries. Are we the ones that can create trusted brands where municipalities, schools, stakeholders, experts can, you know, relate to? And also, how can we together also promote the concept of social entrepreneurship to social sectors? How can we clarify that social entrepreneurs are really there to sustain the organizations, but also continue to innovate? Of course, they need to have some kind of revenue, some kind of income for that. And so how can we explain that mission to the conventional players in the social sector? That's my short input. And I hope we can discuss this further. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Anne. And devil is in the details, and test quick to find all those details. Thank you. I'll give the floor to Madeleine from Ireland, and from Ginio, and from the European Catalyst Social Fund, maybe to give us a perspective on seen from a funder's point of view around this, the scaling internationally. Thank you very much, Madeleine.
Sure, thank you, Isabelle, and good afternoon, very good to meet you all, and happy to be here. I'll just add a few points to the very good ones I think that have already been made by Isabelle and Linda and Miquel and Alex. Just to explain for those of you who are not aware, well, the organisation that I'm with is in Ireland and works at a national level on scaling and systems change of innovations that we work with government and philanthropy to get right across the country. Having spent really from 2008 trying to learn how to do this, and still learning every day, and learning particularly in the last few minutes listening to all of you. In the last couple of years then we've begun to work more in Europe, and I think it's from that aspect that Isabelle is wanting me to contribute. I won't talk for too long because we need time for discussion. The European Social Catalyst Fund is something that we have joined in a consortium with the Bosch Foundation and with the King Baldwin Foundation and with the Commission to really identify and support innovations that are already proven, that are already evidence-based, to develop plans to scale. And we are currently now working with the Commission and consortium partners to develop a second phase of this fund, which we hope will be focused on helping innovations to implement plans to scale. And really where it came out of was, you know, acknowledging that there is so much attention now on social innovation, but so much of it is small scale, can be quite limited, and can end up in significant frustration on the part of those that come up with really fantastic innovations, trying to get support and constantly trying to get support for scaling. So that's happening on the one side. And then on the other side, we have all of these big societal challenges that are growing, and needing to make some connection between what works, solutions, and solving the problems. So that's really the space that this Catalyst Fund was designed in. And so just then very quickly, what we were looking for from a funder's point of view in managing and contributing and managing to this fund, well, obviously you're looking for stuff that works. You know, you really only want to be dealing with something that's already evidence-based. And we have, and you'll see on the EUSCF website, the way we look at evidence, the different levels of evidence that we look at. And then also we're looking to see that people who are applying for planning grants are have the capacity to develop those plans. So, you know, are they sufficiently networked? Is there some body or group in the collaboration that's coming forward that has implementation experience? So we're not looking necessarily for the originator or the founder or the inventor of the idea. We're really looking primarily for innovations that can work and that could really scale it up to contribute very significantly to solving big problems like homelessness and employment and mental health and digital inclusion and all of these areas. And we're learning lots as we go along. You know, the importance of, if you have an innovation, and I think, Miquel, you mentioned this, is, you know, you called it active ingredients. That's really critical, you know, that people can actually define what are the things about this that make it work and that we can't compromise on. You can be flexible about lots of things, like partners, like funding sources, etc. But what are the critical success factors or active ingredients? And some of the innovations that we're dealing with already have those identified through randomized control trials and quite sophisticated evidence, but others have that by almost intuition and learning. And we would be encouraging them to really crystallize those. So whatever you do when you go into a new country or a new region, you know, hold on to those and make sure that you're working in an environment that is concerned about quality. So, you know, for these innovations that have come through, they must develop plans that are relevant for at least 5 EU member states, 2 of which must be in Central and Eastern European countries. So we had responses to this fund from 22 countries. We got 120 applications, and 7 have come through to receive grants. And some of them would say, look, some of the countries that we're looking at, we're not getting the sense that there is enough attention to assuring quality. And they are worried that maybe the innovation that they are committed to scaling could get diluted, overly diluted, and not be impactful, and that they couldn't stand over whether it would be impactful or not. And so it's important that there's some commitment to that. The importance of not assuming need, even if you think it's a problem that everybody faces, that you have to validate the need locally, that you have to look at what's the current response to that need. So to be really aware, and I think this was touched on by a previous speaker, to be really aware that the likelihood is that something is being responded to in that city or that country or region to this particular problem. So you're coming in to build on that. You're not necessarily wanting to displace good work. You may want to have something adopted that's better than what's there. And I think, to your point, Miquel, starting slowly and getting some space to get traction for a new thing is really important. And just knowing in very minute and nuanced detail what's going on here and whose toes are we stepping on, who's going to be upset. I think that's important. Being really transparent about your funding model and where you're going with it. I think that's very reassuring for people. And the other thing, I suppose, is the most successful people we've found and successful ways of scaling. There are 2 things. One is to be really tuned in to the way the problem is being seen by the people you want to develop ownership of your innovation. So not going in with a pitch, not going in before you hear what is the perspective of this person within the time frame that he or she has to operate in to this exact problem, and how then can I make this helpful within that really precise. So a lot of the first conversation really should be more asking questions than pitching result. And the other thing that we have found, having spent quite a lot of money in the past on proof of concept for different kinds of innovations, actually most of the evaluation money that we used to use, we've rediverted into an action research approach. So we are quite suspicious of kind of toolkits or playbooks that talk about systems change as if it's some kind of linear step-by-step, you do this and then this happens and then this happens. I think from my brief conversation with Isabelle, ScaleChangers really get this. I think you really understand this. I'm sure most of you do too here. So you're learning by doing, you know, you're going in with a curiosity into a system. You're not going in, arriving as the big hero with all the answers. Usually that system is not necessarily lacking innovation because they're not hearing ideas or coming up with them. There are a raft of other obstacles and challenges to changing systems that you need to learn about, and you need to help them work around. I'm going to stop there because I'm just conscious that time is running on, but there are a couple of articles that I could send that might be useful if anybody's particularly interested in this and what we've been learning in the last while. Okay, I'll stop there, Isabelle.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. Thank you for everyone. I didn't see if, I don't know if there are some questions in the chat, but what we wanted to suggest is that we have time in breakout rooms so that people can ask questions. So the panelists are going to be split in the different rooms, and that's at the same time that Bonnie is saying in the Bonnie, sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, is asking for the framework and evaluations article. That would be great. And so what I'm suggesting is that we split in groups, so like that we can indeed share what is what would be needed, what would be helpful for you, what are the resources that you find also helpful, and so like that we can all brainstorm together, and then we'll come back to in the plenary in about 15 minutes so that we can talk together about it. Sorry, I'm just seeing about scaling internationally, what would be the area where inventing the wheel might be helpful and more effective? Maybe before we just break out, is there someone who would like to reply to that? Is there an area where inventing the wheel might be helpful and more effective?
Well, there are so many places where the wheel hasn't been yet discovered. So the issue here is, I guess it's not about this. It's about, you know, do we have social problems where we haven't found the solution? And I just couldn't start a list because it's endless. I mean, if you start with an education system that was planned for a more homogeneous society with more predictable futures, or the pension system that was created for more younger societies in Europe, or I don't know, the employment, the whole employment system is that there are so many flows in the system, so many wheels that need to be created. The issue that, and I think that the whole purpose of this session was that there are so many small, amazing innovations out there that are starting to become mainstream. They are still in the margins of the things, but they could become something bigger. And the idea is that there is an image of Ashoka where you have all the fish going in one direction. There's one starting to move in the other direction, and it manages to then turn 3 other fishes, and suddenly the whole fish is gonna follow the one, right? So this is what we're looking for, I think, in these sessions, right, Isabelle?
Yeah. Precisely. So if you're okay with it, because we wanted to give you a little bit the floor and get that people would talk to each other and co-create. How do we help collectively to help those innovations that work to scale even across borders? So I'm going to open the rooms. You can join the rooms, and so that we can have fire chats in those subgroups, in those breakout rooms. So hopefully everyone can see, otherwise it's at the bottom right, you can see divided in subgroups. Gloria, je sais pas si toi t'es...
How long should we have for this? Like 12 minutes or?
Yeah, I think we need 5 minutes at the end just to come back to it. I'm just gonna see. I think some people have left. I'm gonna. I think people sometimes are scared of breakout rooms. I'll just go in one group to facilitate them. Yeah.
I'll join as well. But I know actually I'll stay here, so I'll send people to rooms.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Renee, hi. Do you need any assistance? Hi, how you doing? You're on mute. I can lip read, but not well.
Yeah, thanks. Fine and very interesting, but I have to go, so
Okay.
I have to leave.
Okay. Well, hope you can stay in touch. Feel free to. Are you a Catalyst member?
I follow. I'm doing a study together with Alex on internationalization. So yeah, we keep each other posted, I think.
Great. Great. Okay. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Isabelle, you're on mute. Welcome back, everyone.
Thank you. Sorry, I was. So maybe just to wrap up this session, thank you for everyone. I hope there was an opportunity to meet as well people you wouldn't have met. Maybe I'll start just to give you a few insights on what came out in our groups, and then I'll hand the talking stick to the other groups. But what came out in our group was that there's definitely partnership was at the key as a key pillar for replicating, and that somehow there's a need to change the mindset on partnership and how you have balanced partnership, and also how it would be useful for donors, for example, for you to come with a partnership inbuilt in the calls or in how it's viewed when there's funding, and then the idea of a centralized matchmaking for implementers and originators, and so social innovators, so like that they can be matchmade with people who want to replicate that kind of innovation. And there was a lot of discussion on social franchising as well. Alex or Madeleine, I think you were in two different groups, or Miquel? Would you like to give insights on what came out in the group?
Yeah, I can share for our group. So we had 4 topics mainly. So the one was, how far do you go in adapting your business model, when that is demanded by stakeholders, and do these stakeholders really understand the concept of social entrepreneurship and accept it, basically. We also talked about this kind of, why do you go to another country? This balance between pushing an innovation and pulling an innovation, and how do these two, sides come together? And there was also the discussion on platforms for social innovation. So do we have a kind of a database on available social innovations? And we also discussed the challenge that we need to, as supporters, need to broker a very complex transaction, that is replication, which is not that easy. So it's not enough to inspire. And then we had this discussion around legal frameworks and how to maybe standardize them also for Europe. We also said that the European Commission is interested in the topic at the moment. And yeah, these were our 4 topics.
Thank you. Great. Miquel?
Yes, and in our group, we had, so we have someone representing a social enterprise in the UK, and who major obstacle was finding the right people with the right skills. So that was one. Another one, Robert, who was more part of a movement, actually, that doesn't need to be organized, and it doesn't need any degree of organization to actually, make an impact. So in a way, I think this idea of movements that are not organized and their needs are more wikis, spaces to share learnings was a demand. And then we had the experience of a social impact consultant that was a scaling market-based solutions to fight poverty in India. So the diversity of actors that we had around the table was very interesting, but we couldn't really get into a debate on some of the solutions that we had.
Yeah, time was a bit scarce, but at least it's meeting as well people with similar interests. I think to wrap up, because our session was for 1 hour, so and there's lots of sessions during the week, but I think from our perspective is that indeed there's lots of scope for impact and for system change by scaling what works already in one place, so that you can go faster by replicating it elsewhere. But at the same time that it's not an easy endeavor, and that there's lots of partners and stakeholders to mobilize around the scaling of internationally. And that's maybe as in a lot of even in scaling nationally, but that the human resources is actually key. And whether it be through finding the right people to be your implementers, to finding the right partners, to finding the right intermediaries to help you connect with those ecosystem. And so Bonnie in our group was saying, how do you matchmake? How do you make it easy to make the human part somehow, but easier in that replication? And I think that's, at least from our experience, that's actually critical. And as Madeleine was saying, it's good to have the kit and everything ready and structured, but somehow it's how do you get into the movement, and how do you listen to where you want to go, and how you know how to adapt, knowing at the same time what your fundamentals are, so you don't disperse and go and in the end have something that used to work that doesn't work elsewhere. And I think there's still quite a lot of work to be done collectively, and we'd be very happy to carry on the conversation with those that are interested in the topic, because there's still scope. I feel, but I think the rest of the people on this panel also feel that there's still scope for us to improve and to grow the social innovation. So thank you very much for participating. I know the breakout rooms is always a time when, oh, I'm not just behind my screen, I've got to participate. Thank you for contributing and co-creating the solution. And enjoy the rest of Catalyst 2030 week. There's lots of other sessions as well. So if you're interested in discovering other bits, don't hesitate to sign up. Mick, maybe do you want to have some closing words? Or
just to say or ask, how shall we continue the conversation? Please, if you want to share your invitations in the chat, if you have communities or groups that you would invite people to, then now's the time. We'll also then share those invitations when we share the notes next week. But yeah, huge thanks to everyone who's been facilitating, Isabelle, Madeleine, Alexander, Linda, Miquel, yeah, and the team, Gloria, as well. So thank you everyone for stepping up and joining the conversation. I think we got lots of inspiration, so it's about those next steps. So let's turn these conversations into action.
thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Cheers. Beautiful.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Pleasure. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on, I'll just did you think the breakout room was a good idea? Because we lost quite a few people in the on the way, but I thought it was nicer to get people to talk. No,
always, yeah. I'm anti sessions without breakouts.
All right, okay, well, good, because all of a sudden, because there was 33 people, and when I did the breakouts, I could see people were just sort of, I don't know, sometimes people are a bit scared to go in the breakout rooms, aren't they?
I think, yeah, that's an interesting reflection, because usually they're the most valuable piece,
Yeah.
when people get to share and interact, and then it just comes alive. But it's a good point. I mean, I was hanging on to every word, and I think maybe leading people into a journey of interaction that is kind of little steps. So just asking them, I should have asked them to type in their.
Yeah, I did write it though. I did type in your questions, and no one, yeah.
Then we, as hosts, I was trying to share the reflections, my
that was really helpful. Were you writing things that you appreciate? It sort of helps capture the key informations and stuff.
It's helpful for my learning as much as anything else. But just having other people on the team ask questions or respond, getting people into that interaction space. How was it in the breakouts? Were they?
Yeah, it was great. For my side, it was great. It was just chit-chatting. Then time was a bit scarce, but we managed to get to talk about. There was questions to the panelists, and then there was also discussion on the sort of how can we take it forward. So no, it was useful. well, it was good to have that time, I think.
Yeah, I think it was actually really well designed and tight, you know, like lots of really good nuggets and invitations or inspiration. And then you said you had some like follow-on steps or
yeah, well, we're working on how to make a more eco-friendly, well, sort of ecosystem to support scaling internationally. So yeah, so that's why I put our contact details, so like that we can carry on the conversation if people want to contribute, because there's still scope for innovation and and sort of getting things easier and more flowing. So yeah.
Would you want me to stick that in the newsletter that goes out?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, also, yeah, cool. I might ping you what I have summarized, and yeah, just let me know if there's any edits.
Yeah.
It'll be late this evening when it goes out.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I can have a look. No problem.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being there, because that was really helpful.
Pleasure. Yeah, and I'd love to spend more time with more time. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
taking a breath. That would be good. Yeah.
Are you following? Have you got another session coming up, or do you?
I have 2 more tonight, and then and then 3 more days. 80 sessions.
Yeah, no, it's an intense program.
But it's hopefully it's useful for you, and yeah, so let us know.
It has been. Yeah, well, thank you very much, and good luck for the tonight and for the next 3 days.
Cheers. Enjoy the rest of the week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.